Howdy! Today we're going to talk about this thing. And no, I don't mean the case with the Zelda on it and the Triforce and everything. I mean the 3DS. Now, this thing has had a resurgence recently, and I have never been so glad that I kept mine and kept it in good condition. Now, this is the original 3DS XL, or as it is known in Asia, the LL, and it is the older model, as we see here. It's the first model that was trademarked in 2010 and then put out in 2011. It does have the original stylus, and then a little beat up there from it going in and out. I do have some special styluses and different ones and things like that, but mainly I have been using the regular one. Like, I have an extendable one that you can pull out and it's extendable, and then of course the current game in here is 258 over 2, which is Kingdom Hearts. Today we're gonna look at a little bit of a retrospective on the 3DS from my perspective. Now, this is different than the content I do these days, but I used to do a lot of content like this, and so I kind of wanted to go back and kind of discuss some of this stuff, as I have been seeing a lot of people interested in the 3DS, especially with how expensive the Switch 2 is. Now, the 3DS would launch in March of 2010 with the base 3DS model that was available in all territories, including Taiwan and Hong Kong. Now, the Taiwanese and Hong Kong versions did get a limited release of games, however, they still did get quite a few games, which we will get to in here in a second. Now, this would be the sequel to the Nintendo DS, as the Lite and DSi, although they are technically sequels to the DS and people consider them separate consoles, Nintendo themselves and the official Nintendo Wiki consider the DS Lite and the DSi to just be the normal DS. So they are categorized that way. The 3DS would also become the third handheld in total released in mainland China as the iQOO 3DS. The ones that came before it were the iQOO Lite, just the iQOO Lite, and then the iQOO DSi. Now, the western part of the world and Japan were pretty spoiled as far as games for the Nintendo 3DS. However, as I mentioned previously, some territories within Asia unfortunately only got a limited release of games, but I will not go through all of the games that were available outside of Taiwan and Hong Kong, but I will mention some big ones that I feel are important. As far as Hong Kong and Taiwan, I won't mention every single one either, I don't think, but I again will mention the main titles. Now, of note, they did receive Triforce Heroes, which was very shocking considering the stance on violence games in those territories. However, I think it's just because it's Legend of Zelda, and Legend of Zelda, despite having to stab things and such, is such a monumental series that if Nintendo didn't give it to them, it would kind of feel like they were purposely slighting them with one of their mainstream and main titles. They also received a few Fire Emblem games. I was only able to find any footage for Fire Emblem Echoes Shadows of Valentina. I guess I could have played it myself, but I did not want to play a 50-some hour game to get footage for it, so I apologize, guys. I could have played the other Fire Emblem titles they received, but I just did not feel like playing through that many games for a retrospective video, especially when it's not Fire Emblem focused. But they did receive pretty much, as far as I can see, the entire Echoes series of Fire Emblem games, again, despite their strong stance on anti-violence and things of that nature coming into the country, despite them banning Fortnite shortly after they received the last of the Echoes series of games, they still had all of the Fire Emblem Echoes games available in Mandarin and Cantonese speaking territories. They also had a lot of commercials for the iQOO 3DS featuring very well-known actresses from Taiwan and Hong Kong and mainland China just making memes for some reason. Like, there's at least 20 of these out there, and there probably is more. But yeah, they've really focused on just making memes for some reason for the promo. I know that they also received Animal Crossing New Leaf. They did not receive Happy Home Designer for some reason, which was a little odd as it was New Leaf's companion game. I'm not exactly sure what the reasoning for that is. Also, it had a little bit better of technology than the regular 3DS did for the photography option for taking a picture of yourself for making them ease, which I think is because they did receive it a little bit, not too long after, but a little bit after the 3DS, and they had to change the 3DS and some of the things in it before they could release it there. So that might be part of it, because they had time to also re-look at some things and be like, oh, we should add these different little quirky things just to give them something unique, since they are missing out on online functionality in a lot of the games.
Nintendo 3DS.
What you got?
Resident Evil Revelations.
Super Mario 3D Land. Boom.
Deadly Virus.
Deadly Bowser.
Shotguns and hand grenades.
Fireballs and Tanuki Tails. What up?
Cruise of Terror.
Dude, flying ships and...
bullets with faces.
I love you.
What?
What?
All the best games are available now on Nintendo 3DS. From Super Mario 3D Land to Resident Evil Revelations and more. What will you play next? Games rated E to M.
Now, for this part, I'm just gonna run through some games that had ended up being important to me on the 3DS, like Pokemon Rumble Blast, and then, of course, you have Pokemon Battle Trozai, and then we ended up playing a lot of Pokemon Rumble World, because that is Pokemon Rumble, guys. I have a problem. I also played lots of Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Gates to Infinity and its sequel, and Pokemon Shuffle, because I like puzzle games and I like Pokemon. Now, you can't forget about Super Monkey Ball 3D. I have a strong problem with Super Monkey Ball. And then I played also a lot of Hello Kitty Picnic. I'm getting back into it and restarted my save. Sims 3 Pets, obvious reasons, I am a Sims creator. And Hatsune Miku Project Mirror IDX, again, for pretty obvious reasons. Yoshi's New Island, I have actually started a couple times and just never finished. I will one day. Animal Crossing New Leaf, of course, for, again, obvious reasons if you've paid attention to any of my content. As well as the one we mentioned earlier being Animal Crossing Happy Home Designer, which for some reason not all territories got, despite it being a tie-in into New Leaf, which was really weird. And then Yokai Watch Blasters, the Red Cat Corp. I play a lot of other yokai ones, but those are on cartridges and not in my DS currently. Kirby Battle Royale, which is also on the Switch, but this is where I started playing it. Kirby's Extra Epic Yarn, obviously. And then, of course, Kirby Planet Robot, which people really hated, but I loved it. Now, I know y'all know I'm not talking about coffee, I'm talking about apps and stuff like that. Now, the main one I use is a Namane, which is a theme loader, and I use it because I change my theme so freaking often. I have so many in this folder already. but I'm going to show you how to install a theme through this. You could technically, theoretically do it through FBI as well, but FBI does not work as well and crashes a lot when doing themes. So just be aware of that. This is the best way to install themes, and you do have to uninstall and reinstall them when you want to use them. You can't exit via the home button, you have to use the start button and then press home to close the software and then go back to the home menu. Now, for the sake of being fair, I will show you how to do it via FBI as well, or at least where to scan the QR code. I don't use this because it crashes a lot. Usually it says it can't communicate with the server or anything. If it blinks like that for a second, that's pretty normal with FBI in my experience. So you want to go to remote install and then click QR code scan. Again, I normally don't use this way because it crashes a lot. So let me show you how to use Anemone to install a theme. So you're going to click on it and you're going to open it up, and then you're going to click in the top right after it loads all your themes. Like I said, I have quite a few because I like to change them a lot. You're going to click on the button that's the QR in the top. Then you will scan your QR code, and the website I happen to use a lot is themeplaza.art, as there's so many fan-made themes that are so good, and then there's also some old official ones that are no longer able to be downloaded anywhere, and then you just set them. So you wait for it to download. It can take a little while depending on the current traffic of your Wi-Fi, and so you'll just need to give it a second. Now once that's done, you will need to wait for it to reload the list here, and then we will scroll down actually to the Persona 5 one we just installed. I gotta go down here, and it does label if they are animated or not, and that way you know if it's going to take a little while to load. And then of course you press the start button after it installs and you go back to the home screen, because you can't press home. You gotta press start, close, and then home. And then it should reflect the theme you installed that you chose to be your new theme. So here's the new theme with all the little folder icons and everything. And as you can see, as you flip screens, it does an animation. Now the final way to install themes is going to be from the Age Shop, which you can also install DLCs that are no longer available and things like that. I'm not gonna show you how to do that. There are so many videos on how to do it. Please give one of these creators your love and attention. I know how to do it. It's a pretty simple process for me, but I just don't feel like treading on Nintendo's waters. Now you will still have to edit them and install them to launch via the same program I showed you guys how to use earlier, which you will have to install. It usually comes automatically installed once you set up Homebrew, so it should just be there, and you do have to use that for any time you change your theme on a homebrewed system. Well, I don't know, do you frickin' like video games? I sure hope so. If you don't like video games, why are you watching the channel? Why are you here? Why are you watching a 3DS retrospective? Like seriously, are you that bored? And if you are that bored, start playing some goddamn video games. To answer the question, yes. The 3DS has a library that is far surpassed even the Nintendo Switch. Even now, almost 10 years since the Nintendo Switch came out, the 3DS has so many games, and then it also is multiplied by the fact that you can play any DSi or any regular Nintendo DS game on the console as well. It has also the virtual console games, which means you can play Game Boy, Game Boy Advance, and Game Boy Color games on the console. You can also play SNES and NES games as well, which means, honestly, the opportunities for gaming are endless on the 3DS. It is, honestly, probably the best, most diverse console as far as getting diverse genres of games. As the commercial showed earlier, they literally at the same time had Resident Evil and a brand new Mario game coming out on the same exact darn day. what other handheld do you know that was doing that? And not only doing that, but having them compare to the mainline consoles at the same time. For the love that is all sacred for your wallet as well, please do not buy from American sellers for 3DSs. I know it may be annoying to have to language swap your DS, but trust me, eBay and Amazon are insane on prices for the most part. The prices on Amazon are especially bad, considering they want over $200 for the original 3DS and not even the XL original 3DS, but the plain one. That is insanity. Please go somewhere like Nyoko and scroll through Surugaya and Makari Japan, as yes, there are occasionally people who up-price stuff, but even the special edition ones roughly land around 180 at most, or 200 for the very limited edition ones that had, some of them, in the case of the One Piece console, only had about 200 copies total, and they're still reasonably priced. Like I said, you will run into the occasional scalping person who's trying to like rip people off and get as much money as they can, but that is less common. And you can find some, like the Animal Crossing 3DS XL, actually fairly cheap. And honestly, it's kind of crazy. Like, you have the teal ones and some of the XLs here that just are not as expensive as you think they would. Some of them come in bundles, like 3DS and a 2DS, that are for a couple $100, and it's definitely worth it. Although you do have to get them shipped in, which I know kind of stinky, it's honestly worth it. And here's a prime example of what I'm talking about. The Animal Crossing ones, still in working condition, just sold for a lot less than American prices. In conclusion, do I think it's still worth getting a 3DS in 2025? Yes, I do. Do I think it might be a little more difficult these days because of scalpers and stuff? Yes, I do. However, honestly, if you can get a hold of one via Facebook Marketplace or through Nyoko and finding it on Japanese Mercari or Rakuten, it's definitely worth it. I know that there's like so many possibilities with the 3DS, and it is definitely worth it. I quite enjoy being able to play all of my handheld console games from Nintendo over the generations on a single console. It's just really fun to be able to play them natively. Now, one downside is it is hard to capture footage without just whipping out your cell phone and doing what I did and videotaping your 3DS. It's very difficult to do that unless you know how to solder a capture card yourself for it. However, I think it's definitely got a lot of mileage left, and I am really happy to see that people are finally appreciating the console for what it was, as Nintendo's gotten kind of trying to find an analogy for greedy, but they've gotten pretty greedy, and so I think it's definitely worth it. It's definitely worth the time. There's so many possibilities. You can customize so much stuff, like your themes and stuff, and there's a loving fan base for the 3DS still. There are so many of us who are willing to teach people how to install homebrew and stuff, and so many of us who are, just so happy to talk about our favorite 3DS games and stuff. I know this is a big risk doing a video like this because that's not my normal content. I do cover game reviews and stuff, but I don't really do retrospectives and things like that anymore. I used to do them a lot, but I've kind of stopped in the last few years. But I do enjoy doing them, so if this is something you enjoy, please let me know. I would love to do one on the PSP again. I did one in 2019, and it's very outdated by now. I have some updated reasons as to why it's still worth buying a PSP. So let me know if you'd be interested, and I hope you have a great day. Stay hydrated, and remember to eat.